and communicate less well with things from the vegetal kingdom, and even worse with things from the animal kingdom. Whenever you feed your lodestone, you feed it lodestone hairs once a week. That's a part of the tradition. You're feeding it like you're watering a plant to grow your wealth.
What do you feed?
Lodestone hairs, that is iron filings, anvil dust. Basically, it's iron filings by a bunch of different names. Just a pinch every week, and it basically it sticks to the lodestone and it grows over the year. And I'll get to what you do with it later. But I believe that lodestones have a better relationship and learn more from mineral curios like iron pyrite, and learn somewhat less well from herbal curios like bayberry and chamomile, and even less well with things like gator paws and so forth. Another thing to put around, of course, mercury dimes, because we covered a little bit of that already. That counts as a mineral curio. And the reason why is that, at least in the medieval point of view, and again, this is sort of me being slightly eclectic and heretical, is that animal spirits, we are mobile, we talk, we grow, we die, we rot. Plants, they don't talk, they stay where they are. They're more like minerals. Minerals don't grow, they don't die, they don't rot. And because herbs are more similar to minerals, they basically have a certain affinity. And my experience is that pyrite is probably the best thing to put next to your lodestone as a start, and then vegetal later. And if you want to embellish, you put the gator paws and other things that are associated with money in the Hoodoo tradition last.
You're building those layers.
Yes. It also depends on how much space you've got. I mean, frankly, I have a really big money altar, so I've got a pyrite chunk big as my fist. And when it comes to lodestone magic, bigger is definitely better. Oh, I also dress the iron pyrite that I use with a conditioned oil, so I made a drop of Wealthy Way on it, just once, to create a kind of an affinity to teach the lodestone. This is what I want out of it. I want ostentatious, outrageous wealth from.
What is it called, the oil?
Wealthy Way, but there are many different variations of hoodoo conditioned oils. I think that one's kind of heavy on the cinnamon oil. All right, the last step is usually once a year, usually on New Year's Day, you take your lodestone, you take a brush, and you scrape off all the iron filings that you've accumulated over the year, and you put it aside. You want to throw that away, and you wash it with whiskey, and you cleanse it, and you pray that it will bring you more prosperity in the coming year. The thing is that if there are too many iron filings on top of the lodestone, it will stop sticking, so you've got to clean it periodically. But as long as you just add a little bit every week, you only need to do it about once a year.
And what do you do with the ones that you washed off, or that you took off?
You can do two things with it. You can either reuse it and save yourself some money, or because it's developed a kind of energetic association with wealth, you can use it in all kinds of money spells. You can sprinkle it into your money candles. If there's somebody you want money from and their back is turned, you could throw it at them. You can sprinkle it into your wallet. There are as many uses as your imagination. Basically, iron filings are kind of subtle. Oh, another thing you can do is you can add it to your floor washes if you're washing your floor of your business, or you can put it in the four corners of your business as well. Or if you want to bring prosperity to a friend, give it as a gift.
Since they're already charged, can you then reuse it for your lodestone as well?
Yeah. I used to do that until I realized all these other cool uses for it. So every year I buy a big bag of iron filings because I have a lot of lodestones, and I basically sort them by their purpose, put them in little Ziploc bags, and I use them throughout the coming year. I thought it was a question, sorry. Now when you feed, yes?
I didn't understand what you feed the lodestone with once a week.
Iron filings.
Iron filings.
A tiny little pinch. It's gradual. What?
Iron filings.
Where do you get them? Either a scientific supply house or eBay or Amazon.
It's also called magnetic sand.
Yes, that's another name that I forgot. Yes. Sorry, I had a late night. Yeah, it goes by a lot of different names. Magic sand is another name for it. All right. Talk about mineral intelligence. Oh yes, there's another trick you do, especially if you go into the profession of, or rather, if you go into the practice of doing money spells for other people. Once you have your lodestone going really well, maybe after a year or two, what you can do is you can take lodestone grit, which are tiny little lodestones that are mostly used in mojo bags, and you can baptize it in the name of a friend or a client. And you can put that on the back of the top of the lodestone, and you call it riders. These are riders in the lodestone. And whenever you feed your lodestone, it brings prosperity to your clients or friends for each of one who are named for the person you're trying to benefit. So I have a few lodestone riders going on in both of them. Yeah?
Oh, can you share your lodestone with your partner, or should you have two? If you're in the same house, can you do it?
It's really
together?
personal, so I think you would have to.
Two.
Yeah.
Now, do you recommend having a separate altar as a money altar as opposed to wrapping up that into your existing altar?
Separate altar.
Separate altar. My main one's kind of small. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
you don't want to
it works.
confuse. Lodestones are become self-aware, but they're not terribly smart. That's why you think of them as pets.
Okay.
And you have to teach them human things because mineral intelligence is really alien. You had a question?
Yeah, so you're feeding it every day.
Yes.
What if you have to travel?
Well, I'm traveling now, and what I do is I give an extra helping of iron fountains before I leave and an extra helping when I come back. A lot of hoodoo practitioners get spooked by the prospect of their lodestones losing their magnetic properties for lack of feeding. Lodestones do lose their magnetism gradually over decades, and you may need to replace them periodically. But I think this is a superstition, frankly, that if you don't feed it regularly, it will die. And you know that it's dead because the lodestone hairs don't stick to it. The iron fountains don't stick to it anymore.
Earlier you said you do it once a week or once a day?
Once a week.
Once a week.
If you fed it once a day, it would just have a heap of iron filings at the end of the year, and it would all fall off, so it wouldn't do the trick anymore. You don't want to feed so many iron filing pinches on top of it that it just rolls off, because that defeats the purpose. Every time you want it to stick, at least a little bit of it to stick to the surface. So yeah, a little pinch goes a long way. Lodestones are not just used in hoodoo. They have properties in another tradition that I am involved with, which is Arab astral magic, and in the West was called the scholastic image magic. And nobody could figure out which planetary hierarchy lodestones were associated with, and I find it really frustrating and ridiculous, because, I mean, if this is any interest to you at all, it was associated with Saturn because it's an ugly and dark stone. It was associated with Venus because it's often used for attraction. It was associated with Mercury because the powers are mysterious. It was associated with the star Alkaid for reasons I don't even understand. And Mars because it attracts iron. But there's been a fascination with lodestones going back to at least Hellenistic times in the West. But this is primarily what I'm teaching you as an African magic. Yes?
I'm sorry, I'm a little late to the lodestone. Is there a best day of the week as far as astrologically to feed it? Is there a best time of year to start this altar?
Well, yes. Because you clean it on New Year's Day, probably the best day of the year, just for your own organizational purposes, is probably New Year's Day. Beyond that, everyone has a different opinion about what planet really rules prosperity and what planet rules lodestones. I'm a heretic. I think lodestones are ruled by the sun because I think it doesn't attract, I think it commands iron. So I feed my lodestones on Sunday, but most people would feed it on Thursday for Jupiter. More traditionally, it's fed on Friday, not because of Venus, but because that's payday.
Yeah, I would say you can start at March 1st because that's the beginning of the financial year.
Yeah, that also works.
That works as well. I don't wait till next year.
There's no great consensus. Do what's convenient, just as long as you don't forget to feed it.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee that it'll double your money, but I mean, people have been doing this for hundreds of years because it works. Okay, another part of the hoodoo tradition are pocket pieces, which is sort of a simplified version of mojos, which I'll get to you later. I've already mentioned the gator foot, which you can put on an altar. You can also use in your pocket. You take a gator paw, which has been hacked off. And the reason why we use gator paws is because it's a ferocious, voracious animal, and you want to be ferocious and voracious in your pursuit of money. And you take the gator paw by itself and you anoint it with Van oil, which is primarily lemongrass oil, but you should probably buy it from a hoodoo vendor because they pray over it and so forth. And sometimes you put something in the paw. Sometimes it's a mercury dime, sometimes it's a wrapped up $2 bill, which has it's a rare bit of currency, but it's an accessible bit of currency, which is associated with wealth and unusual accesses of wealth in the hoodoo tradition. And either glue it into the gator paw or you bind it together using green thread or some other type of thread. I associate green less with money, but it's very traditional in hoodoo. I like gold, so if you get a bit of gold thread and wrap it around, or silver thread, I think that would probably work better.
What was the name of that website that your friend runs that does?
LuckyMojo.com.
Lucky Mojo.
There's tons of information about hoodoo on there. But I also want you to support your local businesses as well. But there's a lot of good information on there, even if you don't buy stuff. Yeah.
As a little note too, gators are actually really good at saving because they bring their food down under the water.
That's
and
right.
Save it for later.
I forgot about that. I should remember that. I'm a former biologist. Okay. Let's see. Another pocket piece is the badger tooth, because badgers are tenacious. You also anoint that with Van oil or Hoyt's or whiskey for gambling. That actually comes from, not from the hoodoo tradition directly, but of a book of magic called The Long Lost Friend by George Homan, I think, which is still practiced to some degree by the Pennsylvania Dutch, the Amish. They have their own form of magic, to some degree based upon the Long Lost Friend. And let's see, use the buckeye nut for steady work or business profits, and you anoint that with Hoyt's, or you can drill a hole with it. Yeah?
Oh, I was just gonna say, you're talking about like badger tooth. What about wolf's tooth? Because I know Angie actually has wolf teeth.
I don't know of that being traditionally used in hoodoo, but I bet you it would work.
Yeah, I mean, it's a voracious, ferocious.
Yeah, you can adapt a little bit with
Yeah.
hoodoo. You can bend the rules a little bit. I'm talking about orthodoxy of hoodoo to some extent.
Right.
But if it follows the general logic, a lot of people adapt it to what's available, because this is a folk magical tradition, and you grab what you can get.
Right.
You had a question? No? Okay. I'm telling this for historical purposes only, but one of the traditions is to drill a hole in the buckeye nut and fill it with quicksilver and then seal it with wax. This is very similar to a nutmeg spell, which I'm going to come up with in a moment. Don't do this because quicksilver is toxic, but people have been using this for centuries as a way of drawing gambling luck. All right. Another tradition is, and you've probably heard about this, the four-leaf clover. The normal clover has 3 leaves. It's called trefoil. It's a 3-finger, but it mutates occasionally. And the unusual quality of a 4-leaf clover is thought to bring you unusual experiences, particularly with regards to money. And what people do is they take a 4-leaf clover and they dry it out and they put it in their wallet. But now in the modern era, so that it doesn't break and disintegrate, they usually laminate and put that in their wallet. Mostly for gambling, but generally for money luck overall.
Cliff, giving you a time check, you're halfway.
Oh, wow. Okay, if we run out of time with the Treasury of Money Magic, I will offload some of this material for Big Money Magic, which is the second class after a break. Let's see, another place you can put the 4-leaf clover is in your family Bible. If you have a family Bible and you come from the Judeo-Christian tradition, you usually open it up to Psalm 23 and you put the 4-leaf clover right there. Okay, another tradition is to take 7 fresh pennies and you drill it, a hole through it, and make it into a necklace. There's also the half penny trick. You take a penny and you cut it in half, put 1 in your pocket, and you dress it with Hoyts and so forth, and you keep 1 at home. That's considered to be very powerful. All right, mojo bags. Mojo bags are a prayer in physical form, but it's also a talisman. So when you make a mojo bag and you fill it with various things that I'll get to in a moment, you ensoul it by various means. You breathe into it, or you put incense smoke into it, and then you tie it shut to seal the power. Most mojo bags last about a year and have to be rebuilt, except for mojo bags which only use hard materials like pyrite and roots and things which don't crumble. Things which crumble in a mojo bag lose their power after about a year. You feed the mojo bag with conditioned oils or Hoyt's cologne. Or whiskey, or various other things, including urine in some cases, which is kind of gross. The heart of a mojo bag usually is a lodestone, a small lodestone, or John the Conqueror root, which is the most powerful root in all of hoodoo. Most people agree.
What was that?
High John the Conqueror, sorry.
Now, can you use that without doing all the ritual behind it? Because High John kind of demands that you do certain things with the pound cake and the quarters and
Oh yeah.
you have to,
When you
show
put
gratitude.
Right, when you put it into the mojo bag, it has a different function. You can use a High John the Conqueror root just by itself to bring you what you want. So for example, I have 2 really large High John the Conqueror roots in this pocket, and one's anointed with Crown of Success oil for fame, and one with John the Conqueror oil to basically maintain my health and virility as I'm 48, and it works. But when you put it into a mojo bag, you probably want a slightly smaller one. Generally, the larger the High John the Conqueror root, the more powerful it is, but you have to be practical when it comes to building your mojo bag. And you fill it with lots of herbs and curios which are associated with wealth. You can put gator paws in there, iron pyrite, cinquefoil, the whole list. And usually you put an odd number of things into the mojo bag, usually in numbers that are associated with wealth, like 3, 7, 9, and 13 in the hoodoo tradition. And you can also put a petition paper in there. One thing that you can do is you can write a petition for your money luck, and then you wrap the lodestone or the John the Conqueror towards you. You fold it towards you, turn it around, fold it towards you again, because the directionality process happens again here. And then you insert that into the mojo bag along with the other stuff, fill it up, breathe into it. I breathe into it 3 times to invest it with life and say a prayer, and then tie it shut so my breath is caught within it. But other people pass it through flame, other people feed it incense smoke. This is very individualistic in hoodoo practice. And try what works for you.
Quick question, because you said you put a small lodestone into the mojo bag.
You also want to
still,
put, yeah, go ahead.
Well, you said you feed the bag with like lotion and oil, so that also counts as feeding the lodestone. You don't need to do anything with iron shaving.
Halfway. Usually when you put a lodestone in there, you put a pinch of iron filings in there just once.
Okay.
If you have to remake the lodestone a year later, then you add more iron filings to it. You don't have to do that every week.
It's a good thing to do with your iron filings that you took from your main stone.
Yes.
And another question I had was, would you put a petition paper in there as well to direct the stone?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, the idea is that you take the John the Conqueror root or the lodestone or both, or a mercury dime, and you take the petition paper, put the object on there, and you fold it towards you, turn it, fold it towards you again, turn it again, fold it towards you again until it's fully wrapped, and then you put that in as the heart, the vitality, and the intelligence of the mojo bag.
Okay.
Most mojo bags are usually made out of red flannel, but in the modern era they also use green flannel, and sometimes they use leather. That's a little bit less common. Because red flannel was more accessible once upon a time, and now green flannel is used as well. I like the leather, I just like the feel of it, but that's just me. It disintegrates less frequently. Flannel over a year might start getting ratty and holes popping open. Leather will just generally last longer, so that's kind of my personal preference. All right, let's see. Mojos only have hard ingredients, don't have to be remade every year. You can recycle some elements of the mojo bag when you're rebuilding it. Leaves and stems and so forth have to be replaced, but hard things, iron pyrite, lodestone, John the Conqueror root, other roots, can be reincorporated into a new mojo bag. All right, here's a simple mojo bag. You take High John the Conqueror root, a mercury dime, and you wrap it with a a $2 bill instead of petition paper. Put it in a flannel bag, and you anoint it with money drawing oil, and you anoint it weekly. There's an upgraded version of that where you add 9 devil shoestring roots and a dime from a leap year, which is harder to get, and you anoint it with Van oil, which is mostly lemongrass oil, rather than the money drawing oil. Now, there are different mojo bags for every possible purpose. There are mojo bags very specifically for gambling. And the most famous one involves the lucky hand root, which is a hard root which kind of looks like a human hand, though sometimes they're extra fingers, so the notion only goes to a certain extent. You take a lucky hand root and you add a pinch of 5-finger grass, which is cinquefoil.
Pinch of what?
5-finger grass, or cinquefoil. If you go to a hoodoo shop, they're going to call it 5-finger grass. If you go to a Wiccan shop, they're going to call it cinquefoil. And the association with cinquefoil, it actually probably comes again from the Long Lost Friend. There's a little section in the Long Lost Friend that I mentioned, the Amish magic book, which is if you carry cinquefoil in your pocket, people will do you favors. You'll have helping hands, seen and unseen. And I carry that in my back pocket. All right, so you combine the lucky hand root, the 5-finger grass, and a mercury dime and a gator paw with glue. This gives you help from all things that 5 fingers can do. And that is helping hands, gambling, which involves your hands like playing cards, less so with roulette and lotto, but this has been used for centuries to draw the winnings in games of poker and so forth. All right. Another part of the tradition involves sachet powders, though it's less popular, but I use this a lot. Sachet powders are basically talcum powder in the old days and cornstarch today, which has been added some herbal ingredient like allspice powder and anointed with a lucky oil from a hoodoo shop. So money drawing sachet powder is probably allspice powder today, cornstarch, and a little bit of money drawing oil mixed in with it. And the reason why we use this is because if you anoint paper with a condition oil, it will stain and it will look weird. And what you do with the sachet powder is you basically sprinkle it on the far end of the paper, whether it's a resume or a banking statement or a currency, and you draw it towards you in wavy lines. You sweep it towards you because you want to draw the money towards you. Turn it over, sweep it towards you again, and then you can collect the sachet powder if it isn't everywhere at this point, and you can reuse it later on. I do this a lot. Oh yeah. Okay. And when you do this, you usually recite Psalm 23. It's a very traditional thing to do in hoodoo. There's another tradition called hunting money. And this is a way of ensouling or empowering or expressing your intentionality through currency. You take some money that you have, some cash, and you write the success sigil. And that's this, $, cent, cent, $. It looks like the word success a little bit. And you write it in the corners of your currency. And you go look on the currency for the Secretary of the Treasury, and you cross it out and you write your name over it because you're the master of the Treasury at this point. And then you take the sachet powder and you draw it towards you with the wavy lines, and you put it out there into the world. And this is your hunting money. Your hunting money will go out there and bring back a similar or greater amount of money for you. And this is a very popular hoodoo tradition. If you see a bit of currency with weird things in the corners, $, success sigil, you're seeing some version of this by another practitioner out there.
Are you spending that money?
Oh, yes.
Oh, you're spending.
It's hunting money. You're putting it out there in the world so it will come back and bring friends.
You said you do the $, cent sign up in the
The 4 corners, yeah.
In the 4 corners?
Yes.
Okay, and then you do what with the drawing powder?
You basically write your name over the Secretary of Treasury part.
You didn't say anything about the powder?
Yes, and the powder is at the last step.
Okay, and you draw it towards you?
Yes,
Okay,
always.
sorry,
You don't want to send the money away from you. You want to bring the money towards you.
Okay, I just wanna be sure.
You're teaching the currency. You want more like it. So you put that out there in the world, spend it wherever you normally do, and hopefully it'll come back and bring friends.
So, would you put your personal name on it or your business name on it or?
Well, if you don't want to get yourself in trouble, you want to be sneaky, maybe you'll use an anagram of your name
Okay.
or your initials.
Take a week to facing you guys couldn't see it.
Exactly.
I was wondering.
Or you can use a
Just write
nickname.
me. Just write me on there.
Sure, you can do that.
Too specific.
What?
Wouldn't that be too general? Or I guess if you know you are you.
And you're expressing to the money knows who you are. You're trying to express to the money that you're the mastery of treasure.
Right. And I'm sorry, I think I missed a step. What did you say about drawing toward you? What are you drawing toward you with that?
Sachet powders. You basically take the dollar bill and you sprinkle from the far end of the sachet powder, and you brush it towards you. You do it in wavy lines so it gets thoroughly in there, and then you dust it off so you can reuse the powder if you can, and do the same on the other side. You only need to put the success sigil in the four corners on one side, as well as the treasury thing.
Did you say that powder was cornstarch, money drawing oil?
Well, in the old days, the base of sachet powders was talcum powder, but people now believe it's carcinogenic, so a lot of hoodoo practitioners are switching over to cornstarch, which works just as well. Yes?
Would that be applicable for, appropriate for investment capital or just for purchasing?
Both, yeah, absolutely. These are for any paper goods associated with money. Now, there's another thing I found, which is sort of folk magic combined with hoodoo. There's a lot of new thought which got embedded in hoodoo, and this is definitely an example of that. You take a check from your checkbook, and instead of your name, you write the law of abundance or something similar to that, where you would normally sign your name, and you make it out to yourself, and you write as the amount of the check the exact amount that you need right now, or to need to subsist. Maybe it's $3,000, maybe it's $500, whatever you think that you need. Don't ask for too much or it won't happen. You don't void it, and you keep it in your wallet or some other money location in your house. It's a way of expressing intentionality to the universe that you want the law of abundance to rain winnings and success upon you. Let's see.
What was it you signed in the signature box?
I couldn't hear you, I'm
In
sorry.
the signature box for?
The law of abundance. Or you can write prosperity, some other thing which is an expression of your intentionality to bring good things to you. But the book I found this in says law of abundance. This is not one I personally used yet. Okay, another thing that you can do in hoodoo for riches involve wallets and purses, but this kind of only applies to leather wallets and leather purses. Because you can dress it with condition oils for money, so money drawing oil on your purse or your wallet. I take a fast luck oil and I put it on my wallet every week, just like it was a mojo bag. And you can put herb sprinkles in it, empowered iron filings periodically, or leaves in your wallet which are associated with money. And you can dress it with just about any money related oil, like good luck oil, fast luck oil, money drawing wealthy way, whatever you